What happens when you don't have all the facts? And another question then, is it incumbent upon us to provide all of the facts? And especially when you're sitting in a leadership role, is it even more important that you provide all the facts? I prefer to, as much as I can, I prefer to provide all of the facts that I have at my disposal. And, when I've been in a position where I can't provide all the facts, I'll be really honest about that and let people know that I either don't have them, or depending on the situation, maybe it's tricky, maybe there's some confidentiality around it as well. And I will be really honest and say, look, I do know things about this, but I can't share that at this moment. So I'll be really honest about that. But all of us don't operate or think in the same way, do we? And it's not to say that people are being dishonest about this or sneaky or anything like that. It's not saying that at all. Sometimes it's just in our nature to think, well, I've provided you with this and that's enough. Well, sometimes it's not. Because, what are the consequences or disadvantages of not, having all of the facts? And, there might be a number of different answers that come up for you when you hear that question. For me, the sorts of things that I think about when I think about, what happens when we don't have all the facts, the consequences and the disadvantages of that, is that we have uninformed people. You have uninformed team members. And, what happens when people don't have all of the facts, or any, is they start to create their own story. This is when gossip occurs, and, which can be really detrimental, which leads into other things. And this just isn't about decisions that are being made or what have you. This can even be about the role they have to play and what they need to do. If they don't have all those facts, then they will just create their own idea about it, right? They'll fill in the gaps with what they think it might be, which then leads to having the wrong focus. We'll be looking and working on things that just aren't where we're supposed to be. And which then leads into wasted time. This is one of my pet peeves, I will have to say, is, wasting time on things that we shouldn't be doing because we haven't got all the information, or going off, I know what term I want to use, but going off, not having all of the facts and doing things that, is just a waste of time. And this will then lead to rework because we haven't got it right the first time, partly because we may not have all the facts. So you can see where that wrong focus can lead into a lot of waste of time, the rework, because we haven't got all the information that we need. The other thing that it can provide also when people don't have all the facts is that lack of certainty. And it sort of hangs back to what I said about being uninformed, that if we aren't sure about where we're headed, then, that can lead to that feeling of, for some of us, it's very unsettling. We can get anxious about this when we aren't sure of what is going on because we don't have all the facts. And, some people will use this in a not nice way. There's probably a better term for that. But, some of us think that withholding information, withholding facts is, a form of power, when really it's having a detrimental effect, because we're not sharing what we need to share with people so that they can do what they need to do and perform. And, that is where I often use a question in interviewing, based on experience, where you ask people, you overhear a conversation about a business decision which is being made, and what is being discussed is very far from the truth of, the actual reality of what sits behind the decision. And, and so we want to understand, well, what would that person do in this situation? Would they, put it right, or would they do nothing at all? Um, and oftentimes you'll hear people say they'd go to their manager, even if they know what sits behind the decision and they know the facts, they wouldn't put it right there in this situation. Even if you could say to the people who are gossiping, making up their own story about the business decision, even if you can say to them, look, that's not accurate. There's actually a bit more to it than what you're talking about. And yeah, those aren't the facts. Um, Even if you can do that to quieten the gossip and the uncertainty that may be coming from it, I think that's a step in the right direction rather than just letting it fester on, and that time in between when you might speak to the manager or not. So that's where I really focus on, but also encourage others to be transparent. Within reason, of course, because like I said earlier, sometimes there is information that you can't share. There are facts that you can't provide. But be honest about that too, so people know that there is something there, but at this time we can't share it. But as much as possible, share what you can. Be open and honest about it, because, it will help with those consequences that I mentioned before. The gossip, people being uninformed, wasted time and energy, wrong focus, lack of certainty. Those are those sorts of things that you don't want happening in your team. So in a world where facts don't matter to some, do you want this to be a part of your culture? Do you want to be withholding the facts, or do you want to be sharing the facts as much as you can?